What's going on? Boys, today we are talking INTJs. Not how to meet them, I haven't built a system for that yet, just some observations on them. One of the reasons they're hard to identify in public is the night and day difference between the impersonal INTJ and the personal INTJ. ENTJs have different levels of walls and rings to fit people in, so as you get to know them, the degree you feel you know them feels more natural. It isn't, it's very rigid, but it feels natural. It's layered. INTPs, it's more like wading into a pool. Even if you're on the shallow end, the water on the shallow end is still the water that's in the deep end. So things will accidentally float up and brush against your ankles. The INTP will go, oh shit, you weren't supposed to see that, or that wasn't supposed to come out, hold up. INTJs are way more robotic in their personal, impersonal, getting to know you leveling system. Because although there are multiple levels, the first level, personal or impersonal, is the biggest wall to get over. When an INTJ regards you as impersonal, they're going to seem like anybody else. They're going to be nice, they're going to be kind of friendly, they're going to be personable, they're going to have resting bitch face, but who doesn't? And nothing really will stick out about them. However, because that transition from impersonal to personal is so rigid, you will notice an INTJ versus anybody else. When you try to be personal with an INTJ who hasn't labeled you as personal, it's going to feel like getting zapped by a security system. You don't have the proper identification, so you are not allowed on this level of acquaintanceship. And another thing that's different about INTJs compared to everybody else is they all do this and they seem to like it. Every single INTJ I've met and have moved toward the personal, impersonal security checkpoint has immediately and bluntly put up barriers. Very rigid. These are things we can talk about. These are things we are absolutely not talking about. Go fuck yourself if you don't like it. And this is fine, but there are some things to note about it. Firstly, they will all always do this, no matter how well you get to know them. I don't know why they do it, but every single subject they want to talk about, they will start with, hey, I'm going to bring this thing, this important component of what we're about to talk about to your attention, specifically to let you know that we will not be talking about it. Don't talk about it. Alright, now we can talk. This strategy is unique to INTJs because every single other type, everyone has things they don't want to talk about, but pretty much every single other type will go about it differently. Maybe they will talk about it a little bit but not give you details and you'll pick up the hint. Maybe they will preface what they're talking about, set up context, and then go through it with that scaffolding. Or maybe what most people do is not bring it up at all. But INTJs, for some reason, they always start conversations with, I'm going to bring this thing that you wouldn't have thought about or thought to pay attention to before, I'm going to bring it to your attention, and I'm going to tell you not to talk about it. Don't ask me about it, I'm not going to talk about it. I want you to know this is important, but I also want not to talk about it. Now, my sample size isn't as large as it is with INFJs or ENTJs, but more than 5 INTJs I have known personally all have done this, and I still don't know why. The other thing to pay attention to about this is they will enforce these restrictions on you while ignoring them for themselves. Meaning they are going to breach your boundaries pretty often. And they are going to, one, not realize it's making you uncomfortable if you haven't told them, or two, continue breaching them after you've made it clear you're uncomfortable. If you talk about things that make me uncomfortable, or I've asked you not to talk about, I'm going to ice you. But if you ask me not to talk about something, and I've deemed your reasoning stupid, I'm going to keep pushing it. This is one of the reasons I don't date INTJs. My friendships with INTJs tend not to last, and I tend not to like researching them. I don't know why, but this thing really gets under my skin. Now, the next observation on INTJs is about information, but it's attached to their FI and their FE blindness. INTJs always have an ideal world, structured a certain way, and along with that vision comes a group the INTJ perceives as obstructing that vision. And they're going to be very vocal about that group of people they don't like. And that's pretty normal for human beings. Hatred is wired into us. But it's the way INTJs go about their hatred of whatever group they hate. Firstly, they're going to talk about it almost constantly. If you have a long conversation with them, they are going to find ways to fit ideology into the conversation, even if the conversation has nothing to do with ideology. And while you can think of that what you will, what's concerning is the fact they talk about these things in front of people who might not be ideologically aligned with them, and now they have enemies. And because INTJs are FE blind, they don't realize they're making enemies. INTJs are more extroverted than stereotypes let on, and this manifests in groups. When a conversation gets rolling and the atmosphere has a personal kind of air, INTJs will make statements with implications relating to their ideologies, and they seem unable to gauge people's reactions or gauge what they should or shouldn't say based on the group. So they'll make one of these statements with whatever ideological connotations the statement has, and people will turn on them in real time. The INTJ won't notice, and they'll just keep talking. It makes the guarded topics thing confusing because they will give up information that could actually be used to hurt them in public pretty regularly. And while they seem not to realize, more importantly, they seem not to care. Another observation on INTJs: vastly overestimating themselves and underestimating others. Every single INTJ I have known and studied personally has either expressed the sentiment or said the words, "I am invincible," and they believe that. I do what I want, I get what I want, I'm smarter than most people, and nobody can stop me. And they believe these things. They can't see people turning against them. They can't see consequences beginning to bear down. SI demon. They rarely learn from their mistakes, or they conveniently forget them. They don't remember past consequences. And they end up riding their egos so hard they doom themselves. I won't harp on the negatives much longer, but these are things to note because I've seen them happen, and that fall comes. When a certain sort of people all act a certain sort of way, they set themselves down the same path and reach the same conclusion. Just something to keep in mind. Some positives, even though I guarantee you we will find our way back to the negatives. INTJs are one of the cutesiest types, males and females, once you get to know them. FE blindness supports this, makes it possible. Not FE demon, that's a completely different beast. When an INTJ likes you, they want to love you. They want to shower you in affection. Now, they're going to love you the way they want to love you, not the way maybe you want to be loved, but you are going to feel it. NI dominance makes them obsessive, and if you are an object of their affection, it's like they can't live with themselves if they aren't being useful or loving to you in some way pretty much all the time. Now remember, that's going to be on their standards, or their scale, not yours, but when they're tunnel visioned on you, that affection thing you're going to feel and you can't get away from. Blind spot FE. You know how when INTJs feel wronged, they can't just let it go? They need to express that they feel wronged or they dislike someone? That works the exact same way with love. And that principle extends also into their expression of love. Verbally, I mean. The extra-ness with which they push their ideologies is the same extra-ness with which they will love you. I.e., to the point it's weird and more than a little uncomfortable. Maybe that's why ENTPs like INTJs so much. INTJs just bungle social things while wanting to come off as best as possible or communicate as effectively as possible, and they just don't. And ENTPs feed on that. Social friction and weird people nourish them. Another positive on that affection front, INTJs I get along with even a little bit. I never feel like I need to question their loyalty. With INTPs, I don't trust INTPs. INTPs exist on a stupid or snake scale, and I don't trust a single one of them. INTJs, on the other hand, when they like you, they are very loyal. And I think that's an instance tertiary FI or FE blindness works in their favor, or at least to your benefit, depending on the sort of person you are. If you are coasting on FE, INTJ's FI isn't so high, they are going still to find reasons to hate you, as with FPs. But their FI isn't so low, you need to watch your back, as with ETJs. As long as you haven't wronged the INTJ, or rather the INTJ doesn't feel wronged, they are never going to do anything shady. And they're probably, besides ISTJs, I really like ISTJs. I want to study them more so I can make a video on them, but that's difficult. INTJs are one of the only FI types I really do trust, even when things are going bad. MBTI and humans are all weird dichotomies. The littlest things will set INTJs off, and they will be careless about little things or aggressive about little things. But on things you wouldn't think you can trust INTJs on, they will take extra care without your knowing, without your asking, to make things better for you or to prevent something bad from happening in exactly the way it needs to be done. You know how INFJs can get a good read on the sort of person you are? Which says nothing about their judgment, but just their read. They can get a clear read on the sort of person you are. INTJs can get a read on your dire needs. They're gonna fuck up everything else. Everything else. But when push comes to shove, INTJs are one of the only types I have consistently observed always to come through in exactly the ways they need to come through. That's one of the reasons my opinion on them is so mixed, and not even with degrees mixed. One of the reasons I haven't made videos on them, because I want my mind to be made up before I put information out about anything. INTJs annoy me on every level, in every way that I could be annoyed. To the greatest degree, INTJs annoy me. If there is something that can be fucked up, an INTJ will fuck it up. But they are also one of the only seriously trustworthy types out there. And it is not a consistent, mechanical, or indiscriminate trustworthiness. It is a personal, emotional, and hyper-discriminate trustworthiness. I won't harp on about it, but the world is an ugly, dark, cruel place, and trust is rarer than gold. INTJs, when they like you, are some of the only trustworthy people alive. Alright, moving on to lighter or other positives or funny things I've observed in enough INTJs. They're worth noting as trends. INTJs are cum demons. I think this might be an inferior SE thing because INFJs are too. Now, the types go about it differently, but that insatiable libido thing is present in both types. INFJs will not talk about it at first. Then, once they have cleared you as cool, or this is a person I like, this is a person I can trust, they dump all their horny on you all at once, and it comes out of nowhere, and you don't know what to make of it, because they have so carefully curated their personality traits to you. This is a big surprise. INTJs, completely different. They're sort of like ENTJs in this regard. Most ENTJs I've known and studied have brought up sexuality early into my knowing them. Male ENTJs and female ENTJs, their conquests, their prowess. INTJs do too, but it's more of a focus and there's more intensity. I don't know why they do this. I think it has something to do with needing to justify themselves to themselves. You'll notice INTJs talk on and on about their ideals in their ideal world. I think that's part of self-justification, and I think this is part of self-justification as well. Now, what's different between INTJs versus ENTJs in this sense is, in my limited experience with INTJs, male INTJs approach this pushing sexuality on you differently than female INTJs pushing sexuality on you. But they both do it. Male INTJs will be more direct. They're going to talk about it in the way, quotes, men are supposed to talk about it. Female INTJs are going to use cutesy euphemisms and jokes, but they are going to make a point of pushing this into the conversation. Craftsmanship. INTJs are similar to ISTPs in the sense they tend to have one skill they gravitate toward. The difference is ISTPs are more impersonal about their perfection. INTJ's works, you can smell the INTJ in. This was created by a specific individual with specific this, specific that. INTJ's work is way less personal. It's going to be high tier, it's going to probably be the best, still maybe better than the INTJs, but INTJs put their own personal twists on their craft, for better or for worse. You can sense the INTJ in whatever it is they do. They can't not leave their mark on something. Now, this one might not be a wider trend, but it is true of the INTJs I've known. They are super independent and they do not like being generalized. That's probably one of the quickest ways to piss off an INTJ, to generalize them or to try to fit them into little boxes. They tend to hate MBTI. Even though MBTI is not fitting people into little boxes, it is a foundation individuals build from. They seem not to like the possibility of generalization on them, as they generalize others. You remember that group they hate? If you don't, they're going to tell you about it. Hold on. Even though INTJs are pretty pungent in terms of typology, in that you know you're dealing with an INTJ when you're dealing with an INTJ, if you want to get along with them, don't generalize them. To them, anyway. Another trend, but a more cemented one they share with INFJs, is they tend to be super insecure about their appearance. INFJs approach this insecurity by quietly improving themselves to the point nobody can argue they look good. And then they are still going to feel insecure and need reassurance. INTJs are going to handle this insecurity erratically, and they are going to talk about it. They are going to tell you all the things they're doing to make themselves look good. They're going to tell you how good they look and how everyone reacts to them and wants them, even if they look like shit and nobody wants them. Same insecurity as INFJs, completely different, more erratic approach to handling it. If you want to make an INTJ feel good, an INFJ too, when you see they have done something to make themselves look good, compliment them. That could go for anybody, you might think, but this always seems to be such a sticking point with INTJs and with INFJs. Compliments go a long way, but only when you can see they have done something to improve themselves, to look better. Both are still going to feel insecure afterward. INFJ's quieter, INTJ's louder, but you can still help. And you know an INTJ is insecure about something when they keep bringing it up in conversation, thinking you won't notice. INTJs always think people don't notice when things are super obvious. INFJs are smart enough not to talk about it and fall in that self-created trap. INTJs, FE blind, almost never are. And those are my observations on INTJs. Messy video, but they are a messy, difficult type to study. I'll make a meeting INTJs video when I have enough information. Might have to repeat some things if I ever do. Forgive me. But that about rippity wraps this one up. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. Are you an INTJ? Do you know an INTJ? I'd love to hear your take on them. Other little trends and mannerisms. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, we have a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun. In fact, you could rest the fun on the floor and accidentally spill water all over it and just make a huge fucking mess. Feels good. But that's how much fun we can have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.